You're listening to the Tales of Leadership podcast. This podcast is for leaders at any phase on their leadership journey to become a more purposeful and accountable leader, what I like to call a PAL. Join me on our journey together towards transformational leadership. All right, team, welcome back to the Tales of Leadership podcast. I am your host, Josh McMillian. I'm an active duty Army officer. I am the founder of McMillian Leadership Coaching, and I am an Army leadership coach. And I'm on a mission to create a better leader, what I like to call a purposeful, accountable leader, or a PAL. And my vision is simple. I want to impact 1 million lives in the next 9 years, because we've already been on 1 year of that journey, by sharing transformational stories and skills. And on today's episode, I'm bringing you a transformational leader, Bill Leahy. He's the founder of Renaissance Reliability, RR, is a visionary leader on a mission to elevate America's manufacturing to global heights by championing innovation, reliability, and manufacturing efficiency. In the aftermath of his brother's tragic suicide, a United States Marine Corps infantry officer, in December of 2022, Bill turned personal grief into a commitment to combating veteran suicide, which I absolutely love, and we're on that same mission. This led to establishing UNTURNING STEEL, aiming to bringing veterans and manufacturing together. The convergence of these missions has birthed the collective goal of re-imaging what it means to be made in America. Bill's dedication earned Untitled Steel, a documentary, the prestigious 2024 Best Cultural Innovation Award from the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and Everything Reliability. In his manufacturing career, Bill has excelled in various roles, demonstrating expertise in root cause analysis, RCA, reliability-centered maintenance, RCM, and other continuous improvement methodologies. He is a former U.S. Army captain. Bill has an incredible leadership journey, beginning within the United States Military Academy and being an NCAA Division I Army West Point hockey player. His academic accomplishments include a bachelor's in West Point, an MBA from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and a reliability and maintainability implementation certification from the University of Tennessee. Bill currently lives in Southeast New England, and he is a purposeful, accountable leader. This was one of my favorite episodes that I filmed. So without any further ado, help me welcome William. Bill, welcome to the Tales of Leadership podcast, brother. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think a good opportunity to start, and I always like to kind of set the boundary of each episode, is just take the time to describe who you are to our listeners.
Oh, man, who I am in a short amount of time? Yeah, maybe not answer not popping directly into my mind either tells me that I need to think about it a little bit more, or I'm really full of myself and can't bring it into 30 seconds. But who I am, so I'm a manufacturer and a veteran, graduated from West Point in 2009, got into manufacturing and really found an awesome home there, and advocacy for the manufacturing community and the veteran community have kind of become a central part of my life with this project that we're doing called Unturning Steel.
It's funny, when I reached out to you originally, I'm part of an accountability group. I dare to say mastermind. It's like a group of active duty veterans that are across different branches of DOD. And one of my accountability partners, Jason, he's getting ready to get out. Is I would look this dude up on LinkedIn, and I really love what he's doing. I was like, I got to reach out to him, and I got to bring him onto the show. So thank you for taking the time, because if anyone's listening to this, it's 6:30 in the morning. I keep pretty crazy hours. So thank you for indulging me on that.
Yeah, this is much earlier than I've been awake in a while. I think the entrepreneurship route, after I left the Army and got into that, the idea of waking up whenever you want is such a privilege. I take advantage of it.
Dude, I don't know if I'm ever going to get into that. Like, I get up at like 4 a.m. now, and it's like ingrained in like who I am. So
yeah. Yeah, good for you. I did the 23andMe, whatever, the DNA study, and it came back and told me that my natural wake up time is 8:30, and I said I knew it the whole time.
I love that, man. Before we kind of start digging into your leadership journey and what you've been doing, could you take the time to define how you see leadership in your own words?
Yeah, leadership it's such a beautiful thing. It's really an art. To me, I think of it more as an art because it's the relationship piece of it, and it's not compelling people to do thing, but it's hi. Lily, go away, please. Sorry, my little daughter
Dude,
decided to join me for the moment.
It is no worries. My son comes in sometimes, and he may or may not be wearing any clothes. So it's that's the privilege of having little kids, dude.
Yeah, so I think leadership is either the natural or trained ability to kind of influence people around you to perform as best they possibly can. I think it's and I say this is one of the taglines that I use all the time, but I say that the United States will never, it's not a resource issue with us ever. It's about resourcefulness. And I find like that's really one of the key pillars of leadership for me is making the most of the resources that are all around you. It's not just about people, but it's all the resources that you have, and leadership is leveraging those to the best of your ability to, reach the end state that you desire.
Yeah, I love that, brother. The U.S. isn't a resource issue; it's a resourcefulness issue. So we can basically solve any problem that we want as long as we can find. There's a book out there. It's called Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. And you don't have to understand the how necessarily to do something. You just got to find the right who to help you get through whatever obstacle or whatever operational environment that you're in right now.
And I love that. And that's one of the cool things about leadership is it translates across all these different things. Yeah. So you mentioned that. And then in manufacturing, there's a great guy named Ron Moore, and he wrote a book. He's actually a former West Point guy and Army officer and all that stuff. But he wrote a book called What Tool Win. It's the same idea. Like you don't have to understand all the inner workings of a factory or any of that stuff. But if you understand the problem, understand the tool set that you have, and can make that decision, that's about all it takes.
So let's start peeling back the onion on your leadership journey.
Yeah.
So where do you think that started? And really one of the questions too that I would love to hear is what pushed you to go to the United States Military Academy? Because I know that that's like a 3 or 4 year kind of pipeline from a lot of my friends. It's not something that you just decide to do your senior year. I'm going to the West Point Academy. That's something that you have to like mentally prepare for and start actively pursuing well within your youth.
It's an interesting thing. So I'd say the majority of people that are at the service academies are legacies of some kind. They have a background in it, and I was no exception to it. So my father was a recon Marine and went through the Naval Academy in the early 70s. So he graduated 75. So that part of it has always been kind of in my mind. My dad had the ring. I always admired as a kid and said that'd be great to get one of those. But to be completely honest, in my younger days, I was not very much looking into the future and how things were going. So my journey to West Point, I guess the seeds were planted, but I was playing hockey in the North American Hockey League in Montana, and some of the scouts from the West Point hockey team got a hold of me and started watching my career a little bit, following along, and then offered me an appointment through the athletic department, essentially. So I got recruited to play hockey when they told me I could go to school for free, get an opportunity to get a great education and serve my country. It was a no-brainer at that point.
That's awesome, man. I have a buddy of mine. I'll keep his name out just because I think he's doing great things for the country right now. But he was a football player for West Point. He was an offensive lineman. And I'll never forget the story of we were in Afghanistan and we had like those giant gravel-sized pit rocks within our COP. So it was really hard to run around. But we needed them because of like the strikers and stuff that we were driving around. Yeah. David, which was already 270 pounds, like lean 270 pounds, decides he's going to go run on my treadmill, like the only functional one I have on my COP left, with a rucksack with like 75 pounds in this rucksack. So there's like 350 pounds of man on this treadmill. He just breaks it, doesn't tell anyone. And I go to work out that evening, and I go to turn the treadmill, and it's like dented in, and like Dave, like a meteor hit this thing. And I'm like, David, did you break my treadmill? Yeah, I just didn't want to tell you. I was like, I swear. So that's always interesting, man, like being able to play like college sports, but also go to West Point. From the football standpoint, he had to lose like 70 pounds when he commissioned, and he had like 6 months to do it. What was that like for you, playing NCAA, like Division I hockey and being a cadet?
It was, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's, you just kind of, you wake up and do it. It's really a time warp, like weird place to be. But yeah, you start and you end, and it's like the longest thing you've ever done, and it ends in a blink of an eye. But being a hockey player and having that actually makes the transition into something like this very easy. And actually, a lot of the things we're applying today into our veteran program consists of this. It's like setting the conditions for an easy transition.
Yeah.
Transitioning into West Point, like you said, that's a big decision. So people think about it their entire lives. Like my dad started writing letters to Naval Academy in 8th grade. He was much more focused than I was. But yeah, the transition piece, the things we're always looking for is community, purpose, and certainty in it. And so coming in as a hockey player, I knew a lot of the guys on the team already. I knew we were all getting recruited for the same thing. You have a built-in community within this little, even more intimate space with the hockey team. You had the purpose. You've got a team that you're playing for that has a mission. So hockey was a great way to easily transition me into it. And then while we were in there, it kept us out of some of the bullshit that we had to deal with, because you'd go up to the hockey rink for 4 to 5 hours a day. So when your freshman year, when all your classmates are getting harassed, you're getting harassed in different ways, which aren't as, which maybe are a little easier to stomach. So it was great. Yeah.
So completing that time, and it's funny because I think you and I were at JPLM around the same time. Commission, you do directly out to the JBLM. What was the first unit that you were assigned to? I'm curious. And did you guys deploy?
So I went right after graduation to Fort Benning, and then out to Fort Lewis, and I went to 49 Manchu. It's 4th Brigade over there. And I spent 2 years there. I got there. They were in Iraq. They had about 3 months left, so I did not join them. Hung out on rear detachment. So that was my intro into the Army was that. So nothing very glamorous. So 2 years there, then did the career course back to Fort Lewis, and then I got out shortly after that. So it's about 6 years.
And you're an infantry officer too, right?
Yep.
So did you choose that coming out of the academy?
Yeah. So, and that's kind of a cool just about the service academies. That's kind of neat is that it changes what people's interests are over time, or what the coveted MOSs are. And when I was in at this time, so we were 2005 was when I started. So 2005. You're a couple of years into the war at this point in time. So the demographic of who's volunteering and who's pursuing these appointments at the academy changed a little bit. So you got a bunch of people who are very, very, I wouldn't say like willing or anything like that, but I guess willing to go over and fight. And as a result, it changes. So in peacetime, you get a lot of whiz kids and that kind of stuff there that aren't necessarily itching for a fight. So there's focus more on, like, I guess you could call them their professional skills, or as more transferable skills.
Yeah.
And then when I was there, it shifted completely.
Yeah.
We had 230 infantry spots, and that was the first MOS to go out. So we actually had guys adding years to their contracts before even getting started, just to be an infantry officer. So it was really cool. So all my buddies did infantry. That was the decision I made. And at that point in time, my older brother he was a Marine Corps infantry officer. My dad was a
Yeah.
Marine Corps infantry officer. And there's this huge long line of Marine Corps infantry officers, except the Naval Academy did not have a hockey team. So that was actually the other reason I ended up there. Is West Point has a Division I team, so that was really the choice. And there's no way I was going to Air Force.
Yeah, so I think you chose the right decision, right? Because you and I had the same path. I was an infantry officer for 10 years until I transitioned out into a functional area. But I almost joined the Marine Corps, and I was in the delayed entry program until I found out that I could go be a cadet in college. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I should go enjoy my life. And I pulled out of that program to go join ROTC in college. And then, long story short, here I am today. I'd love to hear before we start the transition of you getting out and what you're on right now. When you were in, especially where you took over that rear detachment, what were some of the leadership challenges that you had to face during that time?
Oh man, at that period in time, I guess the leadership challenge was really it was really an internal struggle at that point.
Yeah,
because it was expectations were just getting blown up left and right, because that's just how it is. Like again, another transition period, right? Out of, they call the transition from a first class cadet to a second lieutenant the greatest demotion in the military, and it's kind of it is, because you're at a place where you can't spit without hitting a colonel. Everyone around you is just top notch, super strong, and all of that. And the picture is painted for you, whether you do it or you're for yourself or whatever. But you have these expectations for what the Army's going to look like when you step into it, what your platoon's going to be, what all these experiences are. And that was a hard thing for me to grapple with, was that all of these, it was nothing like I was expecting. Particularly the unit was overseas, and you get there, it's not, you're stepping in, it's not a platoon that I took over on day one. It was a company of people getting med boarded and doing that sort of thing. So it was, that was difficult for me. So the leadership piece of it, and I struggle with this, and I'll fully admit that I was, I could have and should have done a lot better. But yeah, as a result of that, I kind of regressed and started questioning a lot of, why I was there, what I was doing, what is leadership. It was kind of a existential crisis at that point in time. But this is, and that's why I didn't get to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do when serving. And I carried a lot of guilt with me for a long time, because you have friends that, my brother, my friends, all these guys that have gone over sacrifice, and you didn't get the opportunity to do that. It's a difficult thing. But now with this project that we have, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about in a second, but one of the things I love most about it is I see it as an opportunity for me to kind of make amends for the leadership faults that I had then. Because I fully admit, like I was not the leader that my soldiers deserved when I got them. Whether we were going to go through all the training and deploy together or whatnot, or it was my responsibility to lead the platoon up to the point as long as I could to get them situated for the next guy to do that. I could have done better. So I really see this as an opportunity for me to kind of make things right and serve the soldiers the way I should have.
It's funny. I really believe that our experience in the military is all luck, if that makes sense, of how we show up to a unit, the timelines that they're there. Because really, as a first and a second lieutenant, you're so malleable. And you could either go down a toxic path if you have bad mentors and bad leaders and bad examples, or you can go down a more positive path. In my experience, I think, was almost polar opposite. We were getting ready to deploy to Afghanistan, a very kinetic firefight. There was, I call it the dream team. Some of the best officers, some of them now are at the highest tiers of SOCOM that I was with within as platoon leaders, some of the best non-commissioned officers that I ever had the chance to work for. So I was in the green grass, I guess, if that makes sense. And I felt as if I was in an environment of where everyone was a meat eater. So I was grown in that type of culture of where, hey, I did not use my brain. I was straight like a strong ranger, I guess, if that makes sense, as a young lieutenant. And I had a very jaded view on what leadership was, because I thought, you know, when I took over that I wanted to go lead soldiers in combat, I wasn't viewing people as people, if that makes sense. I was viewing people as objects to go pursue my own selfishness. But I got a very large piece of humble pie served to me when I went to Afghanistan very early on, before I was able to take over my platoon. And that kind of set me on the path that we are today. And I believe the same as you, like full transparency. I don't think that I was the best leader that I could be. And that now some of the tools and what I understand about leadership and how to influence and inspire others, I wish I would have known when I was directly leading 40, 100, 250 of our greatest nation, because I could have made a better choice. So I choose now to use my time, talents, and treasures exactly like you to make a difference. So don't feel bad, brother. I really think it's all about luck, and we use what we have at the time. But walk me through that transition piece, you getting out and you starting.
Yeah. So the transition, I started that, really, I say from the captain's career course. When I exited there, that was kind of the conversation I had with the gentleman that, you know, shuffle you around afterwards. Can't remember the exact title, but
branch managers, dude. I made my
branch manager.
Story.
There you go.
I'll wait. I got a good one for you.
Yeah. So here's my story with my branch manager. We're at the career course, and we're sitting there talking, and he's like, he looks at me, just goes, "Do you really want to be in the Army anymore?"
Wow.
I said, I'd be looking at it. It's like finish my time up and go, you know, start a family and do all those things. Or actually, at that point in time, we had already started the family. So I was, I had one kid in, and it was, time to move on. But go ahead, share your story with me.
No, so I was, a branch came there at MCCC, and they were doing all these different job listings. I was dead set that I wanted to go to 101st, and I was dead set that I wanted to go to Reconnaissance. Why? Because that's where everyone wanted to go. And I still had that meat eater mentality that was ingrained in me as a young lieutenant. My Colonel Gregory Harkins, all of those people. So I go in there, last person, thinking that, hey, he's going to remember me. I'm the last person he's going to see. Total opposite. Go in there. Yeah. There's no other things that are assigned. So I can either go be an eyebolic instructor, which offended me, and I'll get that, or I could go be a CTC instructor, which was absolutely a no-go. So I was like, all right, I know X, Y, and Z. These people are transitioning into a functional area. And I just started listing it out. I was like, give them a slot that doesn't matter, and then pull me to 101st. And he looked. There you go. Yeah, he looked at me. He was like, "That's not how that works. So there's no other slots available, and you need to, because you have combat experience, go be a platoon leader or a CTC instructor." In my mind, it was like, fine, put me in a CTC, because I've already done the lieutenant thing. I want to learn how to be a company commander, and but I walk out of there completely mad. I totally pissed off branch, didn't get anything that I wanted. And I didn't get my orders cut to me until 10 days before graduation, because I made branch so mad in that meeting. So I was not good at soft skills.
Yeah. I get it. That's the branch managers. Yeah. It was funny. You brought me back to that conversation I had with them. And that was one of the things, and maybe this was a great leadership decision on my point at the time, but you leave the career course, you're looking at company command. That's where you're wanting to go next. And everyone was describing that as like, that's the pinnacle of an infantry officer when you're a company commander. And that's like the greatest time ever.
Yeah.
And I knew that. It was, again, thinking back, I was like, I do not have this strong desire to do this, and I would not be the leader that these guys serve, especially at the company level. That's in my opinion, when, Army, I think that maybe that is like the pinnacle when we have the greatest influence and responsibility at that point in time.
Yeah.
But going back to the original question, I remember what you had asked about that transition. So it was like 2014, and I started the transition out. Again, I felt like I had a ton of unfinished business in the military or whatever, but life goes on and you have to go about those things. So I'm looking at this transition, not thinking too far ahead of it. Again, arrogance, thinking that, I'm a West Point graduate and all this stuff. They're going to roll out the red carpet and throw money at me because I'm this, that, or the other. And that was like one of the first expectations that needs to get shattered, is that it's not, no one's going to hand you anything. But yeah, looking out at it, and those things that I talked about are community, certainty, and mission or purpose. Those are what you start instantly searching for. And I think that's just a natural thing. So the first thing I was worried about was certainty, because I had a wife and a child at that point in time. Providing for them was like the number one concern that I had. So I started out this job search, and I went through one of those companies, that the headhunting services that reach out to us every time a veteran starts talking about moving. Yep. So Bradley Morris or one of those was one I used. And you end up doing like 12 interviews in a day at a DoubleTree outside of an airport. And I went and did that, did 12 interviews, got, 12 offers, and you have to go about choosing one. And again, not a whole lot of forethought in this, but I based it off of really salary and geography were the only two things I looked at. So I'm making this huge decision for my family at this one, like the most vulnerable times in anyone's career that's a service member, is that transition out of service. And that's the kind of forethought that I'm putting into this as a captain. A very, I guess, ignorant but educated captain didn't really take the time to think through all of these things. So it was the transition was very loose for me, kind of all over the place. And I had a difficult transition because of it, because there was the certainty. Yes, it was there in that I had money coming in and that sort of thing, but that the certainty in that this is something that I could do for the rest of life and sustain my family, that was not there. I was miserable a lot of the time. For these other reasons, when that community piece, I said, I transitioned into West Point. You have a hockey team built into it, and when you transition from West Point into the regular Army, you're surrounded by your friends there too. Like my first place I went to, Fort Benning, but there was 230 of my classmates with me from the academy. All moved there at the same time, so it's different. So when I left service and moved to my family to Oregon, we didn't have that. And again, the expectation I have is those are all the environments that came from me. You have built-in friends that are all in the same situation and all that stuff. And that wasn't it. I was at a sawmill. And I was the youngest person on the leadership team. There was several veterans in there, but no one really in my demographic or anything like that. People were commuting from an hour away in every direction. So there really wasn't that. And I had to go about finding that community and building it myself on the outside. And that's something I hadn't done before, a skill I really hadn't developed. It was incredibly challenging. And these are a lot of the ideas. So for the program we have, Unturning Steel, the focus of it is helping veterans transition and integrating them into manufacturing. But what has informed the design of the program, the curriculum, and everything that we do is the experience that I and the other developers had in our transitions out of service. So we asked ourselves, well, what are the conditions that we would have set for us? Like, what are the things that we could have done? Because in reality, it's the conditions that dictate the actions that the people take and the things that happen. It's all about that. So if you set the conditions for success, things are going to go really well. So we say, all right, well, what are the conditions? And it's community, it's mission, and it's certainty. So how can we provide all of those things?
All right, team, let's take a quick break from this podcast. And I want to personally invite you to our private Facebook community that I call Purposeful Accountable Leaders, or PALS. And PALS is a community dedicated to inspiring and developing servant leaders by sharing transformational stories and skills, exactly what Tales of Leadership is all about. My goal is to build a community of like-minded leaders that can share lessons learned, ask questions, and celebrate wins when it happens. And my mission in life is clear. I will end toxic leadership by sharing transformational stories and skills, and you will find countless transformational leaders in this group. Many of them I have had the honor to serve with in the military. If you want to find a community that can help you grow both personally and professionally, we would love to have you. You can simply search Purposeful Accountable Leaders on Facebook or click the Leadership Resources tab in the show notes to join. I am looking forward to seeing you guys and continuing to grow together on our leadership journey. Back to the podcast. I love that format, brother. Me thinking about it now, transition piece. I was almost in the same boat as you. I can't remember the name of the headhunter company. It was right when I was on brigade staff, and I was very jaded at that point because I thought that, hey, I should have had a company by now. I've been doing very well in my career. I have combat deployment. I've trained brigades to go deploy, all of these things, but they keep me on staff because I was good at that type of stuff. And I remember sitting in my father's barn in West Virginia over a holiday break, talking to all of these different headhunter companies that were trying to get me to go through their pipeline. And I just didn't feel right about it. I can get out, but that just seemed like there was such a fog there that made me feel so uneasy and uncertain. I had a daughter at that point, married. We were wanting to have a second child, but I felt that I have not accomplished what I wanted to do in the Army, and I still wanted to be in the Army and serve. So I chose to stay in, and I think that was one of the best decisions that I ever have, because the second chapter in the Army, after transitioning from a lieutenant to a captain, was phenomenal. It was good. It was bad, the ugly, like a Clint Eastwood movie. Company command was the best time that I had in my life. I had the honor of doing 2 companies. And it was also some of the most challenging emotionally times of my life that questioned my leadership abilities. When you lose a soldier in a completely preventable circumstance, it's really on you as the leader who created that culture. And I had a yin yang moment. I got put in for the MacArthur Award. I didn't want to go to that because I didn't think I deserved it at all. I thought that I did a horrible job, but all the other leaders and soldiers that I had were like, hey, no, you're doing a phenomenal job. But I always pushed myself to go as far as I possibly could. And I had to make a decision too when I was a company commander. I remember doing a 12-mile ruck march with my first company, and my knee locked up on me when we were just training for EIB. And I'm sitting there thinking, I can't have my soldiers, or I can't ask my soldiers to do things physically that I no longer can do. And I had another transition point there. Do I get out? No, but I don't want to get out. I love the military. I love serving. And I feel like this is where my passion, and I love how you talk about certainty, purpose, and community or mission. I never thought it through that lens. Certainty, purpose, and community, I think, is one of the biggest issues. And it's so simple that I love that people transitioning out just check block it. Is there a community there that can engage my heart? Is there a purpose there? Something that I can work towards every day. And I call it my Christmas morning. I get up every single morning. I have a smile on my face because I know what I'm going to do is impactful, and it brings me joy and certainty. Is it going to allow me to sleep better at night because my son and my daughter and my wife have a house, have a stable income, and I can give them opportunities that I didn't have before? I love that unturning steel concept. And how could you walk me through just...
Yeah. So unturning steel, I'll give the 3-minute version of it. So it is a program we designed. It's a DoD SkillBridge program, which, are you familiar with DoD SkillBridge?
Let's do a deep dive on that, because I have a lot of friends that are very interested in that.
Well, you feel free to share my number with them. I am now a DoD SkillBridge expert. So this is, I found this program a couple years ago through a group called Operation Uniform. So I started to think about this veteran program long before actually the real thing that thrust us into the mission.
Mm.
But this Operation Uniform, and I went down to their graduation and checked it out. And their whole thing was that they take service members through the skill bridge program and bring them in and prepare them for their career, all the way up into hiring and placement. They bring them that far. But I learned about the program, and I was amazed at the graduation and what they were doing. But the formatting is the coolest thing. So DoD skill bridge. For me, I'm a company interested in transitioning veterans or getting them positions somewhere. So I design an offering for them, and I take it to the Chamber of Commerce, Department of Defense, skill bridge. They're all under the same thing. And you present this to them and say, hey, this is worth the investment from the U.S. military into these people that are transitioning out. Mm-hmm. So you get approved at that point in time. And this is the magic, is you get access to service members up to 6 months before they transition out. So the veterans I get that come and train with us at our factories are active duty. So they remain on the payroll, they're getting their BAH, they're insured, they're all of these things. And what that gives us an opportunity to do is take them and match them with a manufacturer that we believe there's great correlations between their mutual desires to make it really work. And they get those months. The employer gets the time to check out and verify the candidate, and then our service member gets the opportunity to see if it's a cultural fit, if they want to work there, if this is the thing they want to be doing. So they get an opportunity to kind of explore the civilian world, build a community there in that space, have certainty through our certification, and they get a brand new mission. It's really cool. That's how we're saying the conditions. So guys, let me go back to the program here. I gotta make sure I get this out, stay focused. So the program we have is Unturning Steel. So that's our DoD program. So it is approved so we can bring veterans. We did this last summer, and our program is partnered with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. They're our accrediting source. So they accredit their certification that we get to put out. And it's in reliability engineering and maintainability engineering, but it's much easier to categorize it under continuous improvement. So all the different models that we're familiar with, like 5S and the Toyota model and world-class manufacturing, really are the military decision-making process is actually very, very similar to all of these things, which is really a great transition. And that one occurred to me after when I got into it. I'm like, it's all the same stuff. You're conceptualizing things, you're organizing, you're mobilizing, you're prioritizing, you're just making decisions. It's all risk mitigation when it comes down to it. So it's a natural fit for these guys. But so that's the curriculum base that we have. The positions. So I'll go through the steps of it. The first step we do is we find the manufacturers. And this is something we learned the hard way. Originally, it was we found the veterans first, and we were then trying to find an opportunity to match, and it doesn't work that way. So we go to a manufacturer, and they say they want to participate in this program. We vet them, so they have to. We do a little bit of an audit, make sure that the conditions are set. We're not going to send people into a bad environment. So there is some background checking that we do on that side. And then we work with them to get their search criteria, customized search criteria for what are the positions that they have open currently. And there's about 600,000 in manufacturing right now, open positions. And that's going to grow to like 1.5 million open positions in manufacturing by 2030. It's crazy.
I fully agree with that, by the way, too.
Yeah, it's nuts. So we're looking to fill these positions. So they give us the exact requirements that they need. So when we base it, essentially it's a metal list. So we take their missing essential task list. These are the competencies they need to train to. We create a custom curriculum for that, like in the right person that we're looking for. And at the same time, we have a pool of veterans, SkillBridge veterans that have reached out to us kind of organically. And they tell us where they want to work, give us their search criteria. And based on these two pools, then we match folks together. So if you want to live in the Knoxville area, we've got, Bush Bean, Smith & Wesson, Rubbermaid, all of those are right there in that area. And those are the companies we would go and say, hey, we've got these veterans that, want to live in this area, want to work with you guys and all of these things. We'll train them up, certify them in every competency that you need specifically for your role. We give them the baseline, the manufacturing expertise. They get a university certification from the University of Tennessee, which tells the entire world that they're top notch and ready to go. And the coolest thing about the certification is our program is intense. It's, like I said, 3 to 6 months. And they're going through this entire thing, and it's project based. So they come and train with us for a week, do like a boot camp at the university. And then they actually go to these sites all over the country, and they work with those manufacturers at their sites with their coaches. We coach remotely and in person. It's run like a distance learning master's program at that point in time. And they go through it, but the project they do has to have tangible value. They have to produce a case study at the end, which demonstrates, their cost savings. And our expectation is really, I'd say on average, it comes out about $500,000, but you have some projects that are hover around $1 million. And that's in that short period of time, cost savings. With one person who's learning to do it for the first time, it's absolutely incredible. So you've got this win-win-win scenario. So
Michael Scott. I love it.
Yep, it is. We just got through the whole series of my kids. They loved it. Dwight Schrute is like I don't know. He's like a demigod around here. He's pretty cool. But him and Ron Swanson, that's the other one for me. But it's it's fantastic. So what we've really done is taken a thing where it used to be a lot of organizations that were you could chart the same path, right? There's, what did I hear? I've heard crazy numbers, but say it's 4,500 veteran and military nonprofits, and there's someone that does every little bit thing you could possibly imagine. What we wanted to do is, again, this is about setting conditions. Is how can we create the easiest path forward, make it as vertical as possible. And that's what we've done. So we take everything from recruitment through the placement. So after they execute this project, they get certified. And then there's that decision-making part where, they're going to have a relationship. So they'll sit down with these folks that they've been working with for 3 to 6 months, and they make an informed decision about what they're going to do. And if it doesn't work out for them together, we have an entire network of other manufacturers that are looking to hire. Like I said, there's 600,000 openings. It's something that the country needs, and veterans are a great fit for it because of the military decision-making process. Yeah. And I'd say my favorite reliability engineer of all time, he's the head coach on my staff as a Navy nuke. And those guys they're just incredibly smart. Their understanding of process and their technical training. And this is a frustrating thing for me. This is actually, I don't know if it's intentional or not or anything like that, but it's an interesting thing, retention, talking about retention in the military. And you've got a guy like that. And the training that Navy nukes go through is, I would say, probably superior to like a 4-year undergraduate degree in nuclear engineering. Wow. That's the kind of thing. But when they step out, maybe I'm incorrect about this, but they really do not have a certification or something that is tangible that they can go out and trade in. And I find that incredibly interesting. And the other one that really surprised me was one of our veterans this summer I worked with. She was Skillbridge, but she was in the medical fields. And it's the same kind of thing. She was essentially a nurse for like 20 years. And there's so many certifications thing I believe she could have had, but she didn't. It's really interesting. So setting the conditions. And if we can control those, all the better.
Dude, I love that whole process. And I think 6 months with the whole skill bridge thing is like the perfect time, because when being in 16 years now, I've taken over like probably 16 different jobs at this point. And 6 months is that decisive point, meaning that, hey, I'm either going to love this job or I'm not going to love this job, because I fully understand it. I understand the people, I understand the systems, I understand the processes. And if I want to, I'll be all in or not all in. 6 months is that magic window. And it's like what we're talking about now, where I work in SOCOM acquisitions. I've been there for 6 months now. Absolutely love it. And I feel fully confident in what I'm doing. So it makes a better decision. I could see that with someone who's transitioning out that wants to go be a manufacturing engineer. And I love the correlation that you make. And I'm not an engineer by trade. and I'll just state that. But I do have a master's in systems engineering management from the Naval Postgraduate School.
There you
So
go.
I have a lot of classes in manufacturing engineering, and you are spot on. One, because you identified that need before, that the U.S. Made in America, that prestige that we used to have is coming back. One, because I think geographically, geopolitically, we're going to be just naturally divided over the next like 10 to 20 years.
Right.
Made in China is not going to necessarily be a thing. I think we're going to do more focused trading based on geographic and allied nations. I think just in my mind, I think that's where we're going. So one of the things that we have to bring back is that ability to manufacture and the skills that takes, and what better pull than the veteran community, because at the end of the day, every single person, now that I understand what it is, project management, program management, manufacturing, is leading in the military.
Yeah.
Every single job that I've ever had, because you put me as an infantry Bubba, right? In PO aviation, my first job is I ran aviation system mission architecture in AMSA, all the systems that go in helicopters to make them fly and do their jobs. I had no idea what they were, but I could correlate my skills that I was educated in and what I've done in the past in the infantry to excel. I don't need to understand this full system in a way. I just need to understand the processes and figure out how to refine them to make them more efficient. And then I was able to go take another job in UAS. And that's where it really got exciting, because, okay, I understand the use case, understand how the system works, and I understand all the programmatics behind it to make it exceptionally grow. And now where I'm at, I think I manage, it's crazy, like some between 60 programs. It's insane. But I love it because now it's pushing me outside of my comfort zone. How can I manage all these different efforts and not be as detailed as I need it, but hit the wave tops to make sure that it's efficient and effective, and then continue to move forward. So that unturning steel, the framework and the pipeline that you've created, and also I caught this too, the mission essential task list. So METAL, which I love too. Like that's the acronym METAL, that you pull that from manufacturers or jobs, and then you align that with people of what they're looking for to connect them. And then you create the whole pipeline. Like, hey, here's a job in the location that connects your passion, your mission, your purpose, the certainty that we talked about. And it's all there. That's beautiful. And could you walk me through the documentary that you filmed?
Yeah. I'll wait. Want to make one more comment before I do that. There's kind of an interesting thing that's happened with some of this, and I love the setup. I'll paint the picture for you. So for me, it was when I bought a house or get married. That's a huge commitment that you're making at that point in time, and you don't necessarily know how it's going to play out. So what we found was you get a really neat opportunity. So this is like an internship. And at the end of it, at that point in time, you're forced to have this real intimate discussion about this relationship that you could be entering into. And you actually get to set expectations with each other with, the information needed to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So they're not only getting to know each other, setting it up, but they're setting the conditions for a long-term sustainable relationship that's going to be, fruitful for everybody. So it's really cool. But yeah, so that the film itself, like I said, I've been thinking about the certification program, and the thing with the veterans really happened with my wife. I had started the company. We had started to have a little bit of success, and I had all this, red, white, and blue veteran-owned business stuff on the webpage and all those things. And my wife's like, "Hey, you've got all this stuff on here. When are you going to do something about it? You can't just put this. You can't say you're this like military guy and not do anything." So that got the ball rolling in my head about how we could do that. So the idea for the program started happening, and then my brother began his transition out of the Marine Corps for the second time. So he was an infantry officer. He was he was a platoon commander at the Battle of Marja. Did all kinds of incredible things, and he got out and then went back in to go help with the refugee camps at Fort Dix and bringing those all of our Afghan friends back. So it was he was doing that, and then he left service for the second time, and he was going through this transition, and it was the same thing, searching for community and purpose and certainty and all that stuff. And I think certainty was the hardest thing for him at this point in time. He was born to be a Marine. Like that's what he was. He's perfect for it, is that guy. And I think he had so much of his value tied into that identity. Yeah. When you got separated from that, it's kind of like who am I type thing. So he was going through that process of figuring it out. And we had begun talking because he finally took a job, and it happened to be in manufacturing. And we had been talking before about him becoming a student of ours before any of these things had happened. Like, oh, we've got this great program. We could use it for veterans. I'm certain I could take any kind of junior officer, senior NCO, whatever, whoever, and I could turn them into a valuable member of the Made in America community. So that was how that planted. And we actually started developing the program together. And this is such a cool thing, because my brother and I were adversarial our entire lives. He was 4 years older than me, which was just enough to where.
Yep, my sister was 4 years older than me.
Yeah, and it's competitive and whatnot, but it's from a distance. It's like I can compete with him, and his physicality cannot overwhelm me because we're that far apart. Where I get to do that, and I know it drove him absolutely crazy. But it was always a difficult thing. The competition was the always like yeah. Again, looking back, can't do anything about it now, but. Everything was Thanksgiving 2010. It was a fist fight in his yard in Camp Lejeune. We were out there fighting because they were making fun of the Army, and I got all butt hurt because I'm whatever. And we ended up doing that, and everyone's girls are crying, and yeah, it was a mess. But so that when this came about, 10 years later, and we really started to work on something together, I was really excited and hopeful for it. But when he did get into the reality of that position, and it just wasn't underemployed, a whole lot of the things that we could list off and the statistics that go along with them. It was kind of it was the same old same. And the result was, in a lot of ways predictable. And on December 1st, 2022, he committed suicide. And that was really the thing that threw us into this wholeheartedly. So the name UNTURNING STEEL, I was hanging out with one of his friends that I just met. He was a SEAL team guy. And he was there. We were after the funeral, we were looking at pictures or whatever it was in the hotel lobby, and we came across this one of an MRAP my brother was in when it blew up, and it was just this gnarly, massive piece of steel. I'll send it to you so you can have it for the show notes or whatever you want. And we're there looking at that, and he's telling me all these stories. And he said he was a SEAL team breacher, so when we would breach and an obstacle or start an assault, he would call turning steel into the radio. And so hearing that, and then looking at this, like the imagery of exactly that, this just twisted steel, he said, that's kind of like what we're undoing. It's difficult. It's returning to function, never quite be the same, but it's worth doing. So that was UNTURNING STEEL. As soon as I could, I got out to Green Bay, which is where Sean was. Yeah. And we did the project this summer at the very factory he was working at. So it's kind of this getting to tie up loose ends. This is getting to complete the work I started with my brother and going through it. So we went in a whole hog last year. So in a year's time, we've done everything from set up the program to now we're knocking on the doors of Congress in a year. And we made the decision that we needed to film it all. Because one of the difficult things we have in this country is it's so stratified now that the decision makers are about, there's 8 degrees of separation between you and where the dollar gets spent. Yeah. And that's a challenging thing, is because then you have people far outside of the community, unimpacted, that do not understand the conditions that we're living in, drawing up solutions for us. And that's the resourceful versus resourcefulness idea again, is if you empower the communities at the lowest level, like the veteran level, those folks are going to understand the problem and own the solution much better. And we wanted to recreate that within manufacturing, create that sense of accountability to something greater than self. And that's the Made in America piece. So the film brings this to the doorstep of academia, which is a big one I wanted to target, for the sake that they're not meeting their obligations when it comes to U.S. manufacturing and what they're preparing their leaders for. Because when your big leaders, they're going through business schools and doing all these things. And I went through an MBA program, one of the best around at the UNC Chapel Hill. I absolutely loved it, learned a ton, but I was disappointed that in those 2 years of study, the cost of what I do every day, that part of the business was brought up maybe twice in 2 years. And it was thrown under the umbrella of manufacturing overhead. And I look at it and it says, last year, U.S. manufacturing was estimated to lose $1.5 trillion, 11% of gross revenue to unscheduled production downtime. And that's exactly what our students go and fix. It's unscheduled production downtime. That is what we're eliminating. That is the risk. So we've got the guys for it. We've got just what they need. And again, and I think you'll like this one. What makes our people so special, or makes our military people so special, and just the remedy to a lot of manufacturing's woes, is they're implementers. And what I mean when I say that is, like in the state of Connecticut here, we have an innovation fund. It's like $75 million, whatever. That's a huge investment, and it's all earmarked for manufacturing itself. And I've worked around the country, everything from, pharmaceutical to aerospace, little Debbie snack cakes, everything in between. And what you really find is, where was I going with that one? I was about to make a killer point, and I can't remember what it is anymore.
Dude, it'll come back to you. But I think that story that you just shared of how you were able to turn your passion into purpose, from walking through that journey kind of with your brother, and then seeing how that impacted him, and going to the name of Unturning Steel specifically from like that type of like breacher mindset, and what happened within that probably IED that hit that MRAP vehicle, and what you're on right now, I think is absolutely beautiful. And you hit the nail on the head of resourcefulness versus resources. And what better people than what I genuinely believe, wholeheartedly believe, that our greatest resource in this nation is the people who volunteer and serve. One, it's a full volunteer force, and everyone who volunteers, regardless of the reasons, they are making the cognitive decision to serve in a time of turmoil. I mean, make no doubt about it. Like, what keeps me up at night is all the different geopolitical tensions that we have right now. Like, this world is absolutely chaos, but what inspires me every single night is the men and women who continue to serve. And then they're problem solvers. And I remember going back into me being in Afghanistan. They gave me a mission to go clear 5 kilometers worth of, basically IED fields, and build a police station and recruit Afghan local police. So what did I have to do? I had to figure out how to be an engineer, to create a road, build a police station, basically do what Special Forces does, of creating an internal type of community and law enforcement local to that area, and then govern that area until we could connect other areas within the larger Afghan pool. And what did I do? I went to the men and women, and I remember this one dude, I'll give him a shout out, jack of all trades. I went to who, not how, right? Like, how are we going to do this? Okay, who can help me do this? Wetlick could run basically every type of equipment that we needed. He could build the police station. And I had all these other types of soldiers who had unique skills that we could leverage at the time. So I took the resources that I had, and that wasn't the issue. I was resourceful enough to figure out how to solve those types of problems. And the same is true now, is that you can take a veteran. I'll just use the hat of like an infantryman. And put them in any type of scenario or field. And if you give them the resources to be successful, they will inspire you. I guarantee it. They will figure out a way to create something better than what you even thought, because they're problem solvers. And at the end of the day, that's what all veterans are. They're problem solvers.
Yeah, and that's all the resources they need is distance, direction, and motivation. That's
Yeah.
that's really all they need. They'll figure out the rest. And I did remember you were talking, and it came back to me. So it was the implementation piece that I was talking about. So $75 million. There's billions and billions every year that they're throwing at stuff, and it's usually for digital transformation or some other buzzword at the time. But the return on investment for change initiatives in North America is less than 50%. So it's like, I think it's actually 75% of change initiatives in North America fail, meaning they realize less than 50% of their anticipated ROI. But that's reality. And that is because we have these great ideas. We have all these things, but we do not have the skills and the people to implement them. And what you just described is that infantry officer, whoever it is, those are implementers. Yep. Give them a direction to say go. And when you're thinking, you were talking about your example, it's a same situation that these young reliability engineers run into. Is you have typically leadership that doesn't understand your profession because it's fairly new and all these things. They have not done that before. So instead of getting like detailed instruction on how you go about doing this thing, it's like, hey, here's a factory. Make sure it runs. And that's about the level of instruction that you get that point in time. And you got to work yourself through it. So the military decision-making process is a great way to do it.
Yep.
You start, chipping away at it bit by bit until you have a really good understanding.
All right, team, let's take a quick break from this episode. And I want to share a leadership resource with you, and that is the Resiliency-Based Leadership Program. RBLP's vision is to create a worldwide community of practice committed to building and leading resilient teams. So why do you need to build and lead a resilient team? Resilient teams are the key to individual and organizational growth, regardless of being in the military or in the civilian workforce. Building collective teams allows for exponential growth and the team's ability to overcome adversity, adapt, and most importantly, grow. And then bottom line up front, resilient teams are just stronger together. And here's a fact. 99% of the people who take that course recommend it to others, and I'm one of them. I just completed my certification, and I highly recommend this. And the great news is it's most likely free to you. And if you're in the military, it is 100% free to you. And if you want to learn more, you can look in the show notes for this episode and find the link and use the discount code JMCMILLION, and that is also in the show notes. Back to the episode. I used to, I'm looking it up right now. I used to understand the MDMP process intimately because I used to go through that at the brigade level as a lead planner. But I want to look that up because now I forgot that skill and it's eating at me. I used to
do they still use it? I didn't know if they had if new doctrine came out or not, but
so
yeah, that
100%.
was the new thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I thought it's very deliberate. It's very good. And a whole lot of the things that I've built into my curriculum is things that I've taken with me from service is a lot of that stuff. Cause I'm an abstract thinker. I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to that. So being in the military really gave me a lot of tools that could really help me be more resourceful with my mental capacity. Otherwise, I'm a space cadet.
I always kind of go through. So MDMP for me, when I'm working through a problem, is almost too formal in a way. And there's a new kind of, and I'm probably going to miss it because this is like 4 years ago, but I think it's the rapid decision-making process of where it takes MDMP, but it pushes it through a more accelerated filter of where you don't have to have as much like big picture wargaming and filtering. I think that is the pivot and the key is that you give people who with a task, give me a purpose and your desired end state, and I'm going to hit that desired end state. And it may not be what you think in order to get to there, but I'm going to get there. And then I guarantee at the end of the day, I'm going to provide more value than what you thought. So MDMP. All right. Lesson 1, you received the mission. So tell me what you want. Yep. Then we go into fact finding, mission analysis, course of action development, building out COAs, wargaming those COAs of like, all right, will these work? Are they smart, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-based? And then we compare those COAs together, cost benefit analysis, bang for your buck type thing. And then we approve that together as a team, or the commander approves that. And then we issue out the orders to actually make it happen.
Man, I can't believe how much I ripped them off. It's like,
dude, you did rip
yeah,
it off. That's the beauty about people like you, that you can make connections. Here's the thing: the military is an untapped resource. Not even
yeah,
with their people, but some of the, like the TLPs, troop leading procedures at a more tactical level. All of these things exist, and they should be in the broader community because it helps.
yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah. No, I believe that the thing that separates our military from every other one in the world is our doctrine.
yeah.
Less so than technology or anything else. It's just we are skilled and practiced at what we do
And the
for
other
a long
thing that
time.
I believe that separates our country from others, especially within the military, is the level of mission command that we can
Hmm.
give. So think about this, is that, an E5, someone, or a brand new lieutenant like you, like me in Afghanistan, I was in charge, and it blows me away. I was in charge with doing combat operations 2 to 3 a day with over $100 million worth of equipment, with over 40 people that I had directly assigned to me. And I was making life and death decisions every single day. And I had maybe 8 months of work experience, but my
Yeah.
leaders entrusted me to give me the authority to make those levels of decisions. And there's certain things that we have to go up to leadership to get approval on. Like if I wanted to drop a JDAM or something crazy
Yeah.
like that. Okay. Understandable. I should have rules of engagement, but that's the beauty about, I think, our military, is that we give our junior leaders as much risk as they can tolerate and stretch them without breaking them. But it also stretches senior leaders. And I had a
Hmm.
great commander tell me this one time, and it still resonates to me. And I think I bring it up in almost every episode, but we have to delegate to the point that we feel uncomfortable. And when we feel uncomfortable, that is the point that you have succeeded in giving enough authority and resources to your team to be successful.
I'm taking that one forever.
So yeah, I know it's powerful, man.
Delegate to the point you feel uncomfortable. Yeah, what a great performance measure. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what you're describing, like, um yeah, it's coaching and mentoring. And
Yeah.
that's one of the actually I would say probably that framework and that structure for the military is one of the things I am most interested in bringing and incorporating and manufacturing. Because the coaching and mentorship, that really is what will sustain people in those difficult times, in those transition periods, is having people they can count on. Um, and again, this is one of the things we want to set up from my experience. I showed up, it's like, new role, this is you, kind of figure it out. And it was very isolating and lonely and quite uh, difficult at times. But having been in the environments that I've been, I understood the value of coaching and mentorship, and I went about and found some great ones within the organization. And the one, this is kind of cool. I love how things come full circle
Yeah.
with all of this. Is so the company that recruited me out of the Army, the first one I went to work for, I went there, had my experience with the transition, learned all that stuff, all these, had hard times, great times, and I left there about after 2 years. And I went about and did consulting and started the business and everything. But now we've come back around, and it's a kind of making amends with them, because I wasn't the leader I needed to be when I was with them. But now I get to come back, and I'm actually training their young manufacturing reliability engineers that are taking over the roles that I once filled there. So it's really cool. And the mentor who really helped me out, he's now helping me with this project with Unturning Steel. So Pat Akins is his name. He's just a fantastic guy. And yeah, it's awesome. And I did not mention this, and I wanted to. So the factory my brother was working at, when he left us, was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's a place called the Metalcraft Mint, and they make all the military challenge coins and custom recognition that we love so much.
Oh, wow.
So they're Green Bay, Wisconsin. They make yeah, it's an incredible amount. If you have a quality challenge coin, it's 100% made in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And I got to work in that process for a couple months this summer, and it's astonishing the amount of care and love and effort that goes into those coins. And I think that that is translated into how valuable they are to us. But it's really cool. I'll send you one. We actually had a coin made for the film, an unturning steel coin that you see in production throughout the movie. So in the beginning of the movie, it's getting the die cut and
that's amazing,
going through the whole thing. And then this is the neat part. So those coins that we love, the enameling on them, the coloring, in most instances, that's all hand painted.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was one of my favorite things about this manufacturing process was it starts with artwork because it's graphic design and all that. And I love how that's incorporated into it. So you've got this a set of people that think completely different than the rest of the organization as far as, what their competencies need to be. So it starts with them and then goes through the whole process and then ends with artwork on the back end too, with them hand painting everything. And just all the different steps and things that have to happen in between. I think I'm very excited for the film to give a lot of people who've never been inside a factory or a manufacturing facility and give them a peek at all the different things that have to happen. And then you can sit around and look around yourself. And I do this with my kids all the time because they don't, they want to know what I'm doing and all that stuff. And it's always manufacturing. And I say, if you look around you, like, for driving, that stop sign. There's a factory that makes that stop sign, and a factory that makes the red paint that goes on it and the reflective tape and all that stuff. Everything has to be manufactured, and that's how we create wealth in this country. It's just all worth doing. And I've kind of become a manufacturing nerd. Never thought that would happen, but I absolutely love it. It's an incredible theme. And as far as national security goes and giving back to that, like my biggest client is Lockheed Martin, and the way they go about their business at the F-35 facility in Fort Worth is they really, really care about the product, and they understand the consequences if they don't do their job.
Yeah, they make some of the most sensitive military technology, that we use. So, and I had an honor. So sorry, we're over an hour. I typically try to keep this at an hour, but we're both fired up. So we're almost done, I promise. But
no problem. Yeah.
There was an opportunity that I had to talk to BAE, and this was over a transponder in a military. And I remember John, which was my industry partner, was like, "Hey, I want you to talk to some of the people." And this was right after COVID, so I was like one of the first military people that was able to go to that factory to talk to the workforce. I was like, "Yeah, no worries." It's like, "Yeah, it should be like maybe 15 to 20 people." Well, there's like 300 people in there. So John was like, "Hey, sorry, there's a little bit more people than what we thought." So walk in there. Yeah. And I start talking to them about, hey, this system that you're producing isn't just wiring harnesses that you're putting together and circuit boards and all of those different things. You need to understand the deeper purpose behind it is that this system goes in aircraft. And what does it do is it provides positive identification of friend or foe. So if an aircraft is flying, it needs to have an immediate decision if this is going to be an enemy or if this is a threat that I need to neutralize and detect. And we cannot allow aviation operators to hesitate because that costs lives. So what you're doing is extremely impactful. And then I went into a deeper story of sharing one of my more vulnerable experiences, but it resonated so deeply because a lot of the times leadership in those levels, they're all focused on output. Like, hey, how many systems did you do today? And what is the total profit of it? But what we forget is the people who actually do those things and connecting that. Like what you do is important and you don't hear it enough, but I'm genuinely appreciative of you and everything that you do. And in the bigger picture, yes, you are doing these small, tedious things, but this is what it's doing for our nation. And then the greatest resource we have, the men and women who volunteer. So one of the last questions before we get to the final show notes that I always love kind of wrapping up.
Yep.
What would be the best advice that you could give someone who's getting ready to transition? I think this would be a beautiful question for this episode.
All right. I'll answer that, but then I have one last question for you before we move on. So that if I was going to tell anybody that's transitioning out of the service, I would say find yourself a transition coach of some kind, whether there's a service out there, something like that, or someone who has done it before you that has just gone through the process, understands all the pitfalls and the different things that can possibly happen. And that'll alleviate, 90% of your headaches if you just ask someone, because those people say, hey, I wish I would have taken advantage of SkillBridge. I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done this, the other, or you need to talk to this person and so on. I'd say it's just, rely on your community to help you through it. That would be the biggest thing. But specifically, if you are interested in manufacturing, check out our Skill Bridge offering. It's actually under the other company, Renaissance Reliability, which is the company that started. But we'll get links to all that stuff. That's it. Coaching and mentoring. Find one, right? Part of being a leader is knowing when you need to have be led, I guess you say, or when you need help and understanding that.
Yeah.
But my question for you, and this is like the standard question we ask everybody who's gotten interviewed for the movie, for everything, is what does Made in America mean to you?
Oh, man, that's a good question. To me, when I was growing up, Made in America meant reliability. It meant something that was more untangible, I guess. It wasn't just a product. It was something that was going to work when it needed to work with its basic function. It was going to last extremely long period of time, that it was something that was unmatched compared to what the rest of the world made, because people, American, citizens, were actually putting their hands to these things and building it. So the quality was just absolutely unmatched. So to me, when you say American made, I think that it's something that is going to work, and that it was made with love.
Yeah. So great. Well said. That's fantastic. Yeah. It's an amazing thing. It is an ideal. I think it's surging back with the reshoring efforts and everything else that we have. Manufacturing is so critical to life, and there's a lot of interest in it, and we're very excited going into an election year with the film, and some important things to talk about. So it's very exciting.
It's time for our final show segment that I like to call the Killer Bees. These are the same 4 questions that I ask every guest on the Tales of Leadership podcast. Be brief, be brilliant, be present, and be gone. Question 1. What do you believe separates a good leader from an extraordinary leader?
Self-actualization. I think that'd be the biggest thing. Understanding where your flaws and where you need help, and really how you're coming across. I think that's probably the most frustrating thing I see, is when leaders don't have a clue what their people are really thinking, not having that insight and ability to look into that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. It's like cleaning up your own house before you go and mess around with other things. That
I love that. Question 2. What is one resource that someone who listens to this episode can go get to help them on their leadership journey?
On their leadership journey. Ooh. One resource they can go get yourself a coach and mentor. 100%. That's what I would say. If you're looking for one single resource that could give you the most good, as a coach or a mentor, go find one. And don't settle for one. They're like therapists. You got to try them out until you find the right one, the right fit, and then it'll change your life.
Yeah, 100%. Number 3, if you could go back in time and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh, Lord. This is funny because this is something I think about all the time. I'm like, oh, man, if I could go back and undo that.
I think we all do that.
Yeah. Younger self. I don't know. I would probably go back and tell my younger self to, take a little more time to be a brother than a competitor when it comes down to it. So that'd be it.
No, I love that, man. So the last one is, how can our listeners find you, and how can they add value to your mission?
All right. So this is an exciting time. So the timing for this is great. So coming up soon on March 7th, we have our debut screening of Unturning Steel. And originally we were going to be doing it as it was just an in-person thing. But we've noticed that we have a very unique opportunity here to do some massive outreach. So we are going to live stream the event as well. So we're doing it at an auditorium on the University of Tennessee campus. So right in the shadow of the football stadium, there's an old Gothic Revival auditorium, seats like 900. And we're doing it in conjunction with the University of Tennessee's Maintainability and Reliability Conference. So there'll be a lot of industry folks there, and we'll do the screening for them on Wednesday night. But Thursday night's the big one, so it'll be live stream and be all that stuff. There is an RSVP page which I'll send to you where people can either say they're going to attend in person, or they can click on it and basically secure their spot with the live stream link. We'll get that to you, and you can join us from afar. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I'm going to do is that screening on the 7th. It's a very difficult project to explain in a short period of time. So you're getting actually some focus on it. And what that's going to look like is we've got, this has been the best thing about this project is where the resources come from is really kind of exciting. Like in the military, you've got certain channels for where you're going to get the resources from. But in entrepreneurship, it's just kind of wide open. And you just got to kind of figure out where they're coming from. And through this, we ended up with this killer a cappella group to do the national anthem.
Oh, that's cool.
That's how it start. We'll present the colors, and then I'll give like a 20-minute keynote speech going through the whole, just how all this thing came together. We'll screen the film at that point in time, and this is a 22-minute short. So this is actually going to be a docu-series. So this was like the experimental edition of it, of where we were messing around in Wisconsin and really kind of screwing things up and figuring out what works. And then the next one will be us taking a cohort through the same work, but in the state of Connecticut. So hopefully with Subbase Groton and some of the manufacturers here will be doing that. And that could be episode 2. But yeah, so that's it. Get some mark on, check it out, hit us up for the live stream link, go to the RSVP page. That is the absolute best thing you can do. If you attend on Thursday, you will be a convert by the end of it. This stuff's undeniable, the value of it. There's really nothing to argue with. There's no downside to what we're doing. We're leveraging government resources that we're just going to sit there and get wasted anyways. We're putting them to use. So it's something we're very proud of. And we know everyone's getting behind, because that's the kind of project that it is and the kind of passion we throw behind it.
But I could just tell that you're deeply passionate about everything that you do. And I think I'm inspired by the pain that you've turned into purpose. And I always go back to like this term, purposeful, accountable leader, or a PAL. You are a PAL. And what that means is being able to make hard decisions when other people's won't, but is turning pain into purpose and inspiring other people through that purpose. And that's exactly what you're doing, brother. So thank you for everything you do, especially towards like veteran suicide and transitions, because that's something that's near and dear to my heart. And the format that you provided and what you're going to continue to do. I'm genuinely appreciative of this past hour and 20 minutes that we've had to talk. So if there's anything that you ever need from me to help you with your mission, and if I have the capacity to do it, I would love to do it. And thank you again.
Awesome. No, thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. They're important conversations. And the cool thing about folks like us is we are not just talking about it. Like, we're out there, we're presenting a solution. It's not just dialogue for dialogue's sake or action for action's sake. It's meaningful action that's going to result in real change. Yeah.
Bill, thank you so much for being a guest on Tells the Leadership podcast, brother.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And folks can check us out at unturningsteel.com. There is a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page. The easiest way to get into contact with me, if anybody wants direct contact, is through LinkedIn. So go find me on there and I will respond.
I'm a testament to that. He will respond. That's how we connected.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend, brother.
Thank you.
All right, team. It's time for our after action review. That was a phenomenal episode with Bill, and such a deep connection that he was able to kind of go through to show how he was able to turn his pain into purpose and make an inspired impact on this world. And it's funny, I think we spent like an extra 30 minutes after we got off talking. I'm so deeply passionate about what he is doing with helping transitioning veterans. This is something that you need to go help and support. And if you can, like financially, when he creates a nonprofit organization, go do it because that is something that is needed today. Again, our greatest resource that we have is our men and women. And transitions are scary because if we don't have a direct task and a purpose of where we want to go, that void can often be filled by darkness, by fear, anger, depression, all of those things. And I personally, that's the whole reason I do this. It really is that I'm trying to help build a better leader, what I call a purposeful, accountable leader. And if I can do that, it'll impact thousands of lives, potentially millions of lives. And that's my vision of impacting 1 million lives to save a life. Because if we have better leaders, they'll be more engaged. They'll create better cultures. They'll create better workforces. They'll help be there and be present and view people as people and not just processes or a cog in a larger system to produce a thing or a widget. You have to be engaged. You have to be switched on. And what he's doing with transitioning service members is critical. And how he was able to do that and share the connection with his brother and the legacy he's trying to build for that is incredible. And he's someone that you need to go follow and you need to support. So what was the first key takeaway that I have? And it's the transition. This probably honestly is the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this episode. When you transition, there's 3 key characteristics or criterias that need to be met. And number 1, we always have to ask ourselves, is there a community there, really accountability team there that can help me when I go transition? You have to have what I call an accountability tree, something that is deeply rooted, but also has large branches that can provide shade. Why? Because transitions are turbulent times. They're scary. They're uncertain. It's a storm. There's a lot of things that are going to come at you at a very rapid and quick pace. What you need is someone who is unwavering in their resolve and support, but also can provide you resources and tools and mentorship and coaching along the way. And you have to have a community. Number 2 out of that is purpose. That is the decisive point. When you transition into a new job, let's say whatever it is, but specifically leaving the military, transitions and finding purpose, I believe, is what makes or breaks the success of that. Purpose is so deeply ingrained in us when we're in the military because we have a distinct purpose. We know when we're going to get up in the mornings. We know what we're going to be doing throughout the week. We know what we're training for. We have a deep level of purpose. But when we get out, we lose that. And I understand that. Me transitioning out of the infantry and acquisitions, I lost my sense of purpose because it was so focused on people. And then now I wasn't leading people anymore. And that's one of the reasons that I went into this, is because I have to have that outlet of bringing value to people. And I understand that purpose is absolutely decisive. So you need to understand what the mission is before you make that transition. And then the last one with that transition piece is certainty. You have to have the mental clarity that if I go do something, it's going to provide me a stable paycheck. It's going to provide me a house for my family. It's going to be something that I can do for a very long period of time, and I don't have to worry about that. Because when we can do those things, when we can connect the certainty of what we want to do, we can have a distinct purpose and understand the mission, and we have a deep level of community or accountability partners or pals, purposeful, accountable leaders that can embrace us in that journey, in that turbulent time. That is what allows us to win in transitions. And that formula that Bill shared can be universal to any transition you have. And I love it because it's so simple. It follows the KISS rule. Keep it simple, stupid, right? These are the 3 checks that you have to understand, the 3 blocks that you need to check. If you can do those, you will be successful in any transition that you do. All right, team, do me a favor. If you like the content that I'm pushing out, make sure you share my podcast. Make sure you rate it on whatever platform you listen to. Go follow me on social media. All of these are live streams. So if you want to go watch this in real time, you can go to my YouTube channel, Tales of Leadership, and see this full episode. It doesn't have the AAR or the opening comments. It's just the full meat and potatoes of the episode. But you also can go to McMillianLeadershipCoaching.com leahyleadership.com and get a full blog that summarizes the key points within this episode and find additional resources there. And the last thing, if you feel so inclined to do so, you can support or donate to the show, and everything that I make goes back to producing better content. I do not do this for financial gain. I do this to seek purpose really within my life and try to make a bigger impact of creating more purposeful and accountable leaders. Team, as always, I am your host, Josh McMillian, saying every day is a gift. Don't waste yours. I'll see you next time.